Everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Advanced JMeter Scripting, Writing Assertions in Groovy. Before we begin, before I pass things over to our presenter, Ariel Bell, my name is Jason. I just want to make a few announcements. Firstly, today's webinar is being recorded, and I will just remind people of that at the end of the webinar. So everybody will get a recording. All registrants will get a recording likely tomorrow in an email. If not, then by the end of the week, I hope. Secondly, webinars are best when people ask questions and participate. We will leave some time for questions after the presentation. And the way you can ask questions is in the questions tab on your GoToWebinar control panel. That said, we often get a lot of questions. Please try to keep the questions as much as possible on topic, and we will try to answer it. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, I apologize in advance, but we do have all questions recorded in our system, and we will try to email you a response if we don't address it during the webinar in the days ahead. Final announcement for now. At the end of today's webinar, you're going to just see a request to take a short survey. It only takes 30 seconds to fill out. I do encourage everyone, if you can, to take the time to do so. What it does is two things. Firstly, we can get your feedback in what you thought about the webinar and how we can make the webinars more valuable in the future. But secondly, if you want to ask any follow-up questions or have a follow-up one-on-one session to discuss your own testing needs, it will give you that opportunity as well, which we always enjoy. So without further ado, I did click on the record button. I'm now going to pass things over to Ariel. Ariel, over to you.
Thanks, Jason, for this lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Ariel. I'm part of the support team here in BeanShell, and I'm glad that you joined us for this webinar. Let's start. What are we going to be talking about today? So, quick overview of the agenda. We'll talk about JMeter assertions, what they are, what type of assertions, and how to use them. And then we'll have a few good minutes on Groovy, what it is, compare it to other languages such as BeanShell, see how it works with JMeter and JMeter assertions, and in the end, I will show you a demo, both in JMeter and how to use BeanShell to better scale and use your JMeter tests. And in the end, we'll have time for Q&A. So let's start. Okay, JMeter assertions. First of all, what are assertions? I'll go over the basic. Assertions are components that enable developers to set criteria, determining whether a response will be considered as a pass or a fail. When we use JMeter to test, most of the time we need to debug and understand if the responses that we received are what we expected or not. Assertions are a great element to verify the response that we received. There are many types of assertions. I will soon show you some of the major ones, the most common used assertions. And I will also show you where can you apply assertions. So let's go over some of the more. First of all, how do you add assertions in JMeter? You can click right click, whether it's on a sample element or even a variable. You can click right click, add assertion, and as you can see here on the screen, there is a large variety of assertions. The first one that I will go through is response assertion. What is response assertion? You can use it to take the text or whatever is inside the response and verify that it's including matches exactly, it has a substring of whichever string that you're looking for. You can use it, where can you use it? You can use it in a text, as a text response. You can use it to test the headers. maybe the response message or the response code. And it's a great tool to verify if the response itself matches your expectations. Another very popular assertion is the duration. What it does is very simple. It's just you provide a duration that you want the response to be retrieved. And if it passes, if it's longer than the duration you set, it will fail. And if it's less than the duration you set, it will pass. My bad, I forgot one more important assertion, BeanShell assertion. Straightforward, you can use a BeanShell script, whether it's a script that it was pre-made and you can insert it as a file, as you can see here. You can enter the file and it will just take it, or you can manually write a script of your own and it will run it, and according to the results of the script, it will either pass or fail. The assertions that we're going to be talking about today, and I'm even going to show you a cool example in the end, is JSR 223 assertion. Let's go over some of the properties that are available to us in this type of assertion. First of all, we can choose the language that we want to use. The default language that comes with JSR assertions is Groovy. You can also use BeanShell or JavaScript. There is 6 or 7, I don't remember the exact number of languages that you can use. And then, just like in the previous example, you can either enter an already pre-made script, or you can write a manual script of your own down here, and the assertion will run it, and it will either pass or it will fail. As you can see, the default language is Groovy. And why Groovy? That's a good question. Groovy, why do we love it so much? Me personally, I love Groovy. I think it's a great language. Let's go over some of the basics of Groovy. It's a dynamic object-oriented programming language. It's used mainly for scripting, and it's based on Java. One of the big advantages of Groovy is that it's 99% Java compatible. Why 99%? It's, first of all, you can use Java. It supports Java 8, but if you know, Java 8 has some, for example, one of the features that is available in Java 8 is Lambda. You can use the Lambda feature to use functions inside functions, but this is not supported in Groovy. So this is just one example of a few things that are not fully supported in Groovy. But most of the things that you'll try are comfortable, and that's great if you have the Java skills. You don't need to learn a new language. It's very scalable. You can quickly learn the language and use it for scripting. Development and support. Groovy is part of the Apache Developer Foundation, Software Foundation, sorry. And it's not only being developed, you also get support there, which is pretty cool. There's not a lot of scripting languages where you can find support forums and support personnel that will answer your question, and if you have any issues, will help you resolve it pretty quickly. So that's a huge advantage of Groovy. It provides native support for regular expression, XML, JSON. Personally, for here in BlazeMeter, and especially in JMeter, JSON is a very important part of our day-to-day life. Many of the responses that we get from our application server are usually JSON of type JSON, and it's really helpful that with not a lot of work, you can understand if the JSON response that you received actually answered the expectation or not. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, it's a very fast language. I will wait a few more minutes and I will show you an example of how different is Groovy regarding its speed compared to other scripting languages. Let's talk about Groovy and BeanShell. Groovy. Groovy is supporting Java 8. It's based on Java 8, which is very good language. Not that Java 5 is not, but BeanShell is equal pretty much in the level to Java 5. What it means that it's Java 5, it means that it's missing, for example, no generics. You cannot use generics in BeanShell. You don't have binary literals. Switch, if you use switch and you want to use a string inside the switch, you're not able to use it in BeanShell. All of these things, all of these features that I just said that are not available in BeanShell are available in Groovy, which is a huge advantage. Secondly, development and support. As I said before, Groovy is being developed and supported by Apache, while BeanShell is the common BeanShell is mainly developed by us developers, and it's not easy to find support. So that's another huge advantage for Groovy. Executing the enemy. What does that mean? Groovy is a language that, as a result also of that Java 8 and Java 5 in the first section, Groovy can run BeanShell scripts that were written in BeanShell, but the opposite is not available. If you write your script in Groovy, you won't be able to run it in a BeanShell environment. So that's another major difference between Groovy and BeanShell. And lastly is performance. Now, I was talking also before that I said that Groovy is very fast. BeanShell also could be fast. And I think the best way to actually prove it is show you a live example of what I'm talking about. Let's start with something very easy. What I'm doing here, this is a JMeter. I'm logging into JMeter, into the log, the test start.ms, which is the variable that shows when the test has started. And as you can see, what we did is we created a thread group on the left side. Here you have BeanShell sampler, you have a JSR sampler here, and an aggregate report to see the result. Let's look at the result. BeanShell sampler, one sample, the average time it took is 1 millisecond. The JSR 223, which ran Groovy, took 5 milliseconds. Huge difference. So at the moment, as we can see, the BeanShell is faster. So why am I saying that Groovy is fast and BeanShell is not that fast? Let's continue to another example. Now let's try something a little bit heavier. Let's try calculating the 36th number of Fibonacci sequence, and then print it again to the JMeter log. We'll do it one time using BeanShell, and we'll do it just one time using Groovy. Take 5 seconds and try and guess how long it will take to do it using BeanShell and how long it will take Groovy, and what will be the ratio between them. Okay, I think you had enough time. Let's see the results. Okay. Same as before, we added a BeanShell sampler and a JSR sampler and an aggregate report just to see the result. The BeanShell sampler, which ran one time, took 36 seconds. That's a long time. While the JSR sampler took 192 milliseconds. Now you can understand what I'm talking about, that Groovy is fast. Groovy is very, very fast compared to all other languages that are available in JMeter. Ruby, which is not part of JMeter, is probably faster than Groovy, but except for that, Groovy is faster than all the available scripting languages. And you can see also the huge difference here in time. One of the reasons, if I go back 2 slides back, that why before, when it took so long, 5 seconds for Groovy to print the start time, and it only took BeanShell 1 milliseconds compared to the 5, is the size of the package of Groovy. Groovy is around 8 or 9 megabytes, which is pretty big. So if you have a script that is very, very short and is only used once, you can still use BeanShell sampler. But if you have a script that you're going to be using many times, or it has to do something which is heavy, I recommend to use Groovy, as it does the job much, much faster. And you see it in front of your eyes here. Let's continue. What else do we have in Groovy? Groovy has a rich feature list. Groovy syntax, it's very, very easy syntax for Groovy. You can take things like, for example, if you want to assert a string, or you want to assert an object, it has the word assert, and you can use it, and you don't need to write from scratch new methods and functions. So Groovy has a list of methods and functions you can use that are very, very helpful. Writing and reading from files, it's very easy. You just take the file that you want, very similar to Unix. And you just very easily write or read. Iterating collections, executing external commands. You don't need the OS sampler that is available in JMeter. If you use Groovy, you don't even need the OS sampler. You can just use Groovy with a very easy syntax and perform external commands. And lastly is the Groovy function, which is available since JMeter 3.1. What does this function do? You can use this function to write Groovy syntax inside that function, and it's on the fly will run this function and makes it very easy when you're using JMeter to use it inside HTTP sampler or any other sampler that you use, or even any variable with user variables. There is a lot of things that you can do with Groovy. I would suggest you to visit this blog post and read more information about what is written here. Groovy and JMeter assertion. Since JMeter 3.1, Groovy has been the default scripting language for JSR elements, which already tells you that if JMeter chose it as the default language, there is a good reason behind it. If you're using JMeter 3.0, it's already built in the system, but it's not the default language. And if you go backwards from JMeter 3.0, you won't have Groovy built in default, but you can manually install the package in the JMeter folder, and you will have it available for you. But it's important to understand that it doesn't come built in only from 3.0. You will have it built in by default. Now, what I want to talk about is assert JSON response with ease. What does that mean? As I said before, JSON responses are a huge part of testing today, and it's a huge part of any application server responses. Groovy provides you the ability to quickly and easily assert any type of JSON response, and without a lot of effort, understand if the response was what you expected or not, and according to this, make the test pass or fail. I want to show you, now I'm going to show you a quick demo of how to use this JSON how to assert JSON responses using Groovy. And once we're done, I will also show you how you can use it with BlazeMeter. So let's go to JMeter. What do we have here? As you can see, I have a test plan. I've added one thread group with one user and ramp up time of 1 second. And I've added 2 dummy samplers. One, this is the response data that I receive from the sample. And this is the response code. And exactly the same response data and response code in another sampler. Where's the difference between them? For the first sampler, I've added a JSR to the 3 assertion that does the following. It uses Groovy as its default scripting language. And I didn't use a file. I've actually manually written a script. And let me quickly explain what I'm doing in this script. JSON Slurper, this is the JSON class that we use with Groovy to assert JSON responses. And what I'm doing here, I'm getting first of all, I'm getting the response from I'm getting the previous response, taking it as a string, and I'm keeping it inside this JSON response. I create a failure message which has invalid JSON, and later we'll see what we're doing with this message. And now I start checking checking this JSON response. First of all, I want to see that the response that I got had a response code of 200. Because if it's not 200, it means for me it didn't pass, and I would like to fail the test. So what I'm doing is I'm checking if previous .get response is equal to 200, and if it's not, I edit the failure message, and I add expected response code is 200, but instead we got whatever we got. Before I continue, what's the special thing about it? Today, if we use the regular assertions that are built in JMeter, we don't have a customized messages. So it's sometimes hard to understand, okay, so we understood that the sample has failed, but we want to understand exactly why it failed, not just that it failed. Using Groovy and JSR assertion, we can easily have customized messages. So it's very easy to debug, and it's very easy to understand what went wrong and why did it fail. So it makes our life as tester much more easier. Now that I said that, let's continue. Next, what I'm doing is I'm checking that if the JSON response contains all of these keys in the first level. Because if the JSON response doesn't have all these keys in the first level, it means that the response that I received is not what I need, and I would like to fail the test. And that's exactly what I'm doing. In case that it doesn't, I'm adding a message. I'm adding another line to the failure message, saying the JSON config element has the wrong structure. Next, I'm not checking a key. I'm checking a value of a specific key. What I'm doing is I'm going to result, to the key result, and then I'm checking if the number of expected server is equal to 2. In case that it doesn't, I'm adding another failure message saying that the element has the wrong number of servers. Number of servers is whatever we received. I've done doing my test. Now I want to set the failure message. This is how I do it. This is the part where I set the failure message. And not only that I set the failure message, but if there is a failure message, it means that the assertion failed. So I'm also setting the failure status of the assertion to true. And then here in the end, I'm just making the failure message look better. And I'm setting the failure to true, and we're done. And we'll see the results of how it looks. Let's give it a try and run this test. Okay, what we see here? We see that the first sampler has a green mark next to it, meaning that the response the assertion did not fail, so I got the response that I expected to receive. My second sampler has a red mark on it, but it has response code 200 and response message OK. So I need to understand why it failed. If I open, I see that the assertion has a red mark on it. And look at this beautiful thing. Assertion error false, meaning there was no error in the assertion. So why did it fail? Assertion failure true. OK, I know that something in the assertion failed. And what is the assertion failure message saying? The element has wrong number of servers. Number of servers is 2. So you see, it's very easy for me to understand what was the problem and why did it fail. I don't need to guess. I don't need to start debugging and trying to guess what was the response that I received. It's very straightforward, very easy to use, and very easy to debug. Now that's how we use it in JMeter. Just to show you, the only diff why the first one failed and the second one not is that I changed in the script. Instead of checking for if the number of server was 2, I've checked if the number is equal to 1, but it's not equal to 1, it's equal to 2. So the assertion failed. Let's go to BlazeMeter now. I would like to show you BlazeMeter. Now, this is an example report of JMeter. But first, before I show you the report, I want to show you how I get this report. BlazeMeter is very easy to create a test. What we do is we go to create tests. We have a variety of tests. You can use JMeter tests, Taurus tests, which is an open source that we use, URL tests. Let's go and create a new JMeter test. What do we have here? This is a normal configuration page of a new test. Here we need to upload a JMeter script, any CSV file, jar file that we use along with the script. Let's go and quickly add the file. As you can see, Groovy assertion. What do I have on the right? I have the load configuration. BlazeMeter provides you a very easy way to set load, ramp up time, iteration, duration of the test, where do you want the load to come from, and it's all in very easy, one click, no hassle, and it runs very quickly. Let me show you. For example, what we'll do here, let's choose US East, which is Virginia, and Amazon Web Services. We'll run 20 users with ramp-up time of, let's say, 20 seconds, endless iteration, and 20 minutes. We'll give the test a name, webinar demo, and we'll save and run the test. You can see it tells me a very short summary of what I'm going to run. I press launch servers, and while it's running it and initiating the test, I want to show you a report, example report, and how it looks. So, what do we see here? This is a summary report of a test that I ran before. You can see that it ran 20 users. The average throughput was 39.82 hits per second, 49% error rate, average response time of 279 seconds. You can see the average bandwidth, and you have nice graphs that show you how the response time was during the whole duration of the test, and how the users level was, the hit rate during the test, the error rate, and it's very easy and nice for the eye to use. And if you guys use JMeter to view your test results, sometimes it's not that easy to understand from the JMeter listeners to understand what's going on in the test, and here it's pretty easy. What else can we see? We can see the request stats. We can see for each sampler in the test how many samples it ran, the average response time, the average hits, 90% line, error percentage, and you can play with it, and you can download the CSV and then use it in your system, and there's a large feature list. I'm not going to go all over them now, but the special and most interesting feature that is related to what we're talking about today is the JMeter assertion and error. Now, as you saw before in our JMeter test, we saw that the error was very clear to our eye. We knew what the error was because we built it. But now I'm running it in BlazeMeter, not in JMeter. But look at the nice thing. We have a special tab that is called assertion name, where here you can see failed samples according to the assertion. As you can see, 5,968 samples were failed. I want to know why. Let's press on it, and we see, as you can see, I have how many times it failed, which label, and the reason. As you can see, the failure message, the element has wrong number of servers, number of servers is 2, URL null, JSON response, and it's very easy from the system to understand why it failed, just like what you saw in JMeter. We show you here in BlazeMeter the reason why the sample has failed, and you can go back and quickly debug the system, debug your application server, your responses, and make your life easier. Let's go to the report that we started. I want to show you how a live report looks. This is how a live report looks. As you can see, we have the user here. You can see the graph. As you see, it started going up slowly until it reached 20. And you can play with it on live, request start, see how many samples were done until now. You can see timeline report, which will show you different KPIs, such as how many virtual user, hits, errors you can add. We have a variety of KPIs that you can add to the graph and use it during the test to understand what's going on with your system. That was BlazeMeter. That was Assertions, Groovy, BeanShell. I hope I was able to provide you information that helps you, and I really hope that you will use Groovy because it's a great scripting language and provides great features and tools that help you make your test impressive and quite easy for debugging. And as I promised, I think we'll go to Q&A now.
Ariel, do you just want to go back to the slide just to show the summary?
Sure. As I said before, we talked about JMeter assertion. We talked about Groovy, why do we love it so much. We talked about Groovy versus BeanShell, Groovy and JMeter assertions. I showed you the demo, and last thing we did is we ran it in BlazeMeter for reporting and scalability. And if there is any question on any of this subject now, I would be happy to answer.
Great. So just before we start the questions, I want to remind people, I see a bunch of questions already coming in. The way you can ask questions, if you don't know so already, is in the questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. Just to repeat a couple of things. One, we will try to get to as many questions as we can. We do have a lot of time, but we also are trying for the audience to answer questions that were on the topic of today's webinar as much as possible. So please, if you can, keep the questions to that topic. But that said, if we don't get a chance to answer your question in the live broadcast, we have them all recorded as long as you asked it and send it to us, and we will try to get you a response by email, you know, within, let's say, the next several days. Also, just for those people who are not going to stick around for the questions, just a reminder, if you can fill out the survey as you're leaving the webinar, it just takes 30 seconds to fill out, and we do appreciate your feedback. Okay, a bunch of questions came in, Ariel. I'll read some out to you, and we'll do our best to answer. So, a few technical questions. Will the Groovy assertion work on Python Django framework API? And the response is, he's asking if the response is JSON.
Okay, let me explain it like this. The way it works is that JMeter, what happens is I'm focusing on, if I understand your question correctly, is you're asking if your API is based on Python Django framework, and the response is a JSON, and you're asking if it will work. If you use it inside JMeter, and the JMeter receives a response, it doesn't matter for JMeter if the response came from a Python framework or from any other framework. as long as the answer was a JSON response, as the response was a JSON response, then and it comes and it uses JMeter, then yes, Groovy will. It's a JSON response, so Groovy will know how to work with it and give you the results that you need. If I understood, if that's what you meant in your question.
Okay, great. Somebody asked, can we create a common method for Groovy and use across different JMX files?
You'll have to elaborate on that question because I don't fully understand the question. So if whoever wrote it can write a little bit more, I would be happy to answer.
Okay, we'll take a look at that in a few seconds. Sandeep asks, will assertions add any overhead to a test?
Okay, assertion. It will not add any overhead to the network, but it will add an overhead to the CPU utilization of the engine that is running the test. Because assertions, obviously, they take a lot of CPU, but not a lot, but they take quite a CPU resource handler, and so they will have overhead when it comes to this, but there will be no overhead to the network. The only overhead will be to the engine and its CPU and memory usage.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody asked, how do we debug Groovy scripts in JMeter?
How do we debug? Can you repeat the question?
How do we debug Groovy scripts in JMeter?
How do you debug Groovy scripts? The best way to it's just say, it's a trying and see if it works, and if it fails, if it fails as a result of you missing a class, you forgot to import something, what will happen is that if you open the log viewer, you will see the arrow why the assertion has failed. What will happen is if a script in Groovy doesn't work inside JMeter, what will happen is that you will see in the log viewer that the assertion has crashed the test, and it will provide you with information that what's the reason that the assertion has crashed. And if it's a missing import, it will tell you that. If it's not finding, it has a null pointer, it will show you a null pointer. What it does is Java. It will throw you whatever Java would throw you if you use a Java code. So the same thing will happen in Groovy. You will just receive an exception that will pretty much direct you to where is the issue in your script.
Okay, great. We do have the person who asked the question earlier that you asked to expand upon has responded. So I'm going to read the more expanded version of the question. Can I create? He wants to know, or she. I'm sorry, but can I create a bunch of Groovy methods and store them as external files as reusable, so that I can use it later on JMX files or test when I require it?
That's actually a very good question. And what I'll do is, let me open JMeter. And if you look here, you see, if you look at the screen, you see here a file name, script file. As I talked about before, you can write the Groovy script in a file and then reuse it in any JMX that you want, just by providing the link to the Groovy script that you've written here. You would leave this empty, because if you have a script written here, it will ignore whatever script. Sorry, my bad. If you provide a script, a file script, it will override whatever you wrote here. And what you do here is you can put a path /user/my path /some script, and it will just run the script from here, and this is a very good way to reuse scripting that you write instead of writing it every time from the beginning. I hope that answered your question.
Okay. Firstly, somebody asked how to learn more about Groovy. They said they're a bit of a beginner. In addition to the content that you got from this webinar, we're going to show actually a link at the end just to kind of, it's actually about Groovy forum, but also on the BlazeMeter blog, which is blazemeter.com/blog, if you search for Groovy, we have a few articles. Ariel referenced one earlier, which kind of gives an introduction to what Groovy is and starts from the beginning. So that could be a good place to start. What else? There's a lot of questions. Hold on. Just to remind people, yes, the session was being recorded, and you will get the full recording tomorrow. Somebody asked, how easy is it to use an XML file creation using Groovy? Can I write an XML structure using CSV parameters?
Can you repeat the last part of the question?
Can I write an XML structure using CSV parameters?
Using CSV parameters. That I need to take more time to think about it. It's not straight up of my head. What I can say, ignoring for a second the CSV part, and creating an XML structure in Groovy is just as easy as creating a JSON, structure and analyzing it. I think I even mentioned it in one of the slides before, that XML is built in Groovy, just like the JSON is. Just like that you have the JSON slapper, you have a class for XML, and it's kind of easy to use XML with Groovy.
Okay. We have a few questions about BlazeMeter, so maybe we can switch over to that for a few minutes, and then we'll come back to Groovy. But somebody said it's the first time they're viewing BlazeMeter and wants to know, actually we got a couple questions about BlazeMeter. One is, what are just the basic advantages that BlazeMeter has in running tests over JMeter, just open source JMeter? And the second question was, where does the load come from? Are the load machines provided by BlazeMeter, or are they client provided?
Okay, let me start with the first question, and then we'll go to the second question. First question, what are the advantages of BlazeMeter? First advantage, which I showed here, it's the reporting. We have a very, not only beautiful, but also productive reporting that makes it, I would say, easy to analyze the results of your tests, and without a hassle. You just find, you have exactly a few tabs, you know where to find in each tab the results or the graph that you're looking for, and it's straight up in front of you, and you can, another advantage, you can dig in and start. Let me show you. I want to show you something. Let's open, for example, if we take, you can start and you can drag from one point to another, and the graph will go in and show you only the time slots that you've chosen, which is a very cool feature. Additionally, this is really a strong advantage of BlazeMeter, you don't have to handle your own servers. I'll give you an example, I'll give you a really easy example. You want to generate load that will come from the states, from 4 different states in the United States, and you want the load also to generate from London and one from India. It means you need to maintain servers in all of those places. You need to find a way to all of them to run in the same time. You need to find a way to aggregate the reports of all these tests, and it's not easy. It's not an easy task, and it requires a lot of maintenance, and it requires a lot of knowledge. And here in BlazeMeter, it's so easy to, for example, the scenario that I just gave is so easy to create in BlazeMeter, and you get it very quick, and you don't need to maintain anything. So you also save money. You don't only save time, you save money. So you save time, you save money, and you get amazing reporting. That's a lot of advantages over JMeter.
Great. Somebody asked, is Groovy limited only to assertions, or can I use it in pre and post processes as well?
Can you ask it again?
Is Groovy limited only to scripting and assertions, or can I use it in pre and post processes as well?
You can use it in pre and post processes as well, and it has lots of features that you can use. As I showed you, you also have, since JMeter 3.1, you have the Groovy function, which you can use everywhere in JMeter. So that's really cool. And Groovy is, yeah, you can use it anywhere, also in pre and post processors.
Okay. I'm just looking at a few more. Hold on.
There was another question about BlazeMeter that I thought that we didn't.
Which one?
There was a second question, whichever you want.
There's a few. I mean, I'm trying to also keep things on topic as much as possible for the audience. Just to repeat, for people who have BlazeMeter questions as much as possible, we're trying to get to as many as we can, but we're also trying to keep it generally on topic of this webinar. If it's like I saw somebody ask about Jenkins, we have some sessions and then we have some blog posts and we have some ways to answer you, but let's hold that for another time. But hold on. Somebody asked, can they convert or import a JMX script to a Groovy format?
Convert.
Or import, yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. You can use Groovy inside JMX. I don't know why I'm trying to think, why would you, I don't see it. Why would you like to convert a JMX to Groovy? But even if you want, I'm not aware of a tool that converts JMX to Groovy.
Okay. Somebody asked before, which situations do we use Groovy assertions and a regular response assertion?
Okay, it's a good question, by the way. If the default assertions element that are available in JMeter can give you the results that you need, then use them, because they're good. They do their job. But when you'll use Groovy when the basic elements that are provided with JMeter won't give you the answer that you need. For example, if you wanna the example that we did with the JSON, you want to understand that the structure of the JSON is what you expected. It will be very hard to almost impossible to do it with the built-in assertions that are provided in JMeter. But with Groovy, it's easy. But there might be other cases or scenarios that it might not be easy to do it in Groovy, but it will be impossible to do it with the basic assertions that are coming with JMeter.
Okay. By the way, a few people ask, I think that if they're going to get like the sample Groovy script that you presented in today's webinar, like in the email follow-up with the recording, is that possible, you think? Or?
Yeah, of course. I can provide it, and we will add it. If we will add it to we'll find a way to provide it to them.
Okay, great. Hold on. We'll take just a couple of more questions because I know we've been going on for a while with the questions, and then we'll try to get the rest that we didn't answer in an email format. But hold on. We discussed some of these are repeats like that we discussed already. People can see the recording if they might have missed it. Hold on. Let's see if there's any of this. Do you know, Ariel? Somebody asked, what are the external Groovy inbuilt functions available? And
what are the external?
He said, what are the external Groovy inbuilt functions available, and where can we see them? I don't know if it's something that you know at the top of your head.
I'm having a hard time to understand.
Okay.
What are the? I'm trying. Can you repeat this? What are the external?
Yeah. Hold on. I just moved it. What are the external Groovy?
Okay, I found it. What are the external Groovy inbuilt functions available? Where can we see them? I don't know all of them. There is many functions. Where can you see them? Online, there is a really large community that can answer and provide you these answers. In the end, I think I will quickly show you. I'll provide a link to the Groovy Lang official website, and they have a great documentation there, and you can they have a good support and community to ask those questions. So I would really suggest you to ask this question in that forum. And in general, there's lots of information available online. It's a very common language. I don't have the answer on the spot right now.
Okay. I think then, Ariel, if we can just begin to start wrapping up, maybe if you can just go to the next steps slide. Thanks, by the way, for everybody for the really great questions. And again, there are a few that were a little bit off topic. We do have all your questions, and we'll try to address them in the next several days via email, like a direct email to you. So thank you for everybody for asking. We tried to get as many as we could. A few things. Firstly, for those who want to try out BlazeMeter or don't have a BlazeMeter account already, we have a free plan. It's for an unlimited amount of time. It's not per trial, but it is limited in capabilities. Like you can't run large-scale load tests on them, but you can try it out just to play around with the tool. You can do it anytime at blazemeter.com, and just after like a couple of minutes, you can start testing. We have a really great blog that focuses on really anything you'd want to know on JMeter. Ariel mentioned that we have a number of great blog posts on Groovy and JMeter. And so just search for Groovy when you go to blazemeter.com/blog. Be sure to check that out. All of our webinar recordings are online, and you can access them at any time. You just have to go to blazemeter.com/resources. This one will be online, I hope, in the next few days, but by attending today's webinar, you will also receive the full recording to your email as well. We also have a great knowledge base, which has a bunch of information about everything you might need to know about BlazeMeter. That's at guide.blazemeter.com. Also, one of the things that Ariel mentioned about the advantages of Groovy is a really good support community, including numerous forums. There's a really great website, Groovy-lang, lang.org. You can see that link on the screen there. Check that out as well. That's good for getting started with the tool for those people who asked that they're just getting started with Groovy. But again, check out the blog post that we have as well on the BlazeMeter blog. If you just go there and search Groovy. Thanks to Ariel Bell today for a great presentation. Thank you to the audience for attending. I know for some people it might be the late hours, and some people it's different hours around the world. We have a global audience, so I appreciate it. Just two final reminders. One, you will receive the full recording, hopefully tomorrow, directly to your email, if not by Friday. And if you can, just take 30 seconds, really just 30 seconds to fill out the survey, which is going to pop up now at the end of the webinar. We would all truly appreciate it. We very much look forward to your feedback. See you next time, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much. Bye.